70% of the projects fail, meaning they are not completed at all. However, only 2.5% of these will be done on time and on budget, including project migrations. I invite you to join me and to discuss project migrations, specifically project online migrations, at the 2018 Virtual Project Online Conference. And why I'm wearing this? Well, I for one love cycling, and I see many parallels between climbing a mountain and delivering a project. So that's our plan for today. We will today climb a mountain and talk about Project Online. See you later. A project online migration is a bit like riding your bike up to the top of a mountain. The road is there for you to ride, the mountain is there for you to climb. You know how high is the ascent, you know how long it takes others to do it, and you know how to get there. With so many knowns, what's the deal? The deal and the challenge is on the climb itself. Oftentimes, companies go through migration exercises, sometimes because they are moving to a new tenant or upgrading to a new platform. Maybe it's just about consolidating data across the enterprise. Either way, I hope you know that performing data transfers between systems is never a trivial endeavor, particularly if you are involved in legacy systems. But fear not, I have been across a few migrations in my time, and while it does not make me better or worse than any of you watching this right now, these experiences gave me insights that I can share with you about what have worked, what didn't work, and tips to avoid the most common pitfalls. After all, that's the whole point of becoming an experienced professional, so you can warn others about the best route to climb. You came, you saw, you won, and now you share. To make our conversation more structured, I categorize the overall migration in 6 steps: preparation, change freeze, execution, homologation, rollback plan, and decommissioning. I would like now to get 1 minute of your attention to discuss tooling and its importance in the migration. The whole migration can be done via PowerShell. PowerShell is a very powerful tool and can absolutely cover quite a large area of the domain we need to address. There are a few hundreds of migration scripts available over the internet, covering from project publish and check-ins, Sharepoint site exports, project data export and import, etc. However, for your own sanity and for the project financial health, I highly recommend your project to spend money on a proper migration tool. If not, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You will spend many hours manually moving configurations and making sure that they all are correct. We are talking about typing in an Excel spreadsheet the names of the views to be migrated, their fields, the PDPs, which order they are presented, etc. Also, you need to make sure that permissions are moved correctly. Dealing with Project Online and SharePoint permissions alone should send you shivers through your spine as I tell you this. So, do yourself a favor and use a dedicated project migration tool. Another thing for you to pay attention here is that potentially a large migration will be a mix of automated steps and manual steps. It is very unusual for a full migration to go 100% automated. There will be always little exceptions that are better done manually instead of trying into fitting as part of the automated process. Sometimes 95% of a migration goes automated, and the 5% are exceptions. My tip for you is to address the 95% of the projects that can be migrated automatically and tackle the 5% remaining manually. Now let's talk about preparation. Here's your goal, is to engage business users who understand the contextual meaning and value behind this migration exercise. Key business users must be identified to work together with the project team. If they are subject matter experts in the project online or in the business PMO, even better. What you are going to do now is to make sure these people have a major input in your success criteria. They will help you to define what a successful migration is for the businesses. Also, in the preparation, you should establish clear ownership of the data. We are talking here about who owns the data, as in systems, and their level of quality. This point will drive the business decisions the migration might need to make. Now, if you work in a medium to large organization, you probably know that one of the challenges that this presents is that often there is no clear ownership of data. A lot of businesses do not have a dedicated data quality manager. How to fix this? You fix this by making sure that accountability and ownership of managing the data is crystal clear. Put in a Word document what decisions are made and shared around what data to keep, what additional data is needed, and if they are relevant for the migration or not. Then you navigate the conversation along these lines. Scope is the key word here. Now that we have identified the users and the data, we can perform the dry runs. Dry runs are very important because they form baselines. They will give you an indication of how long the migration will take, how much data is effectively transferred, and what kind of problems you might encounter. Try to perform dry runs as much as possible and as often as possible. Start with 2 projects, then 5 projects, and then slowly progress until about 10% of the number of total projects, or until you have enough confidence on the test results. Every wave of dry runs will give you insights and issues that need to be addressed before the next wave of dry runs. In Project Server and Project Online, we have a mix of project data and Sharepoint data. Traditionally, projects make a pair with a respective Sharepoint site, which contains project documents, lists, site pages, etc. This means that you have not only to migrate project data, but also Sharepoint data. And both these repositories are updated independently of each other. The challenge? How to make sure the migration picks up all the data and do not leave anything behind. Not only this, but how to make sure people do not edit the data while the migration is in progress. Implement a change freeze. So, the recommendation here is, after all the groundwork is done by the project manager in charge of the project migration, a communication must be sent to all project owners and key stakeholders. And basically, will be along these lines such as, dear project owners, the project migration will start next Friday at 6 p.m. Make sure all your reports are generated, your forecast and actuals are checked, and your projects are checked in and published, etc., etc., etc. Change freeze is paramount. Lock the project, lock the Sharepoint. We are now ready to kickstart the migration. On the D-Day, make sure the team have a quick catch-up meeting at the start of the migration and a meeting at the end of the day. Important issues can be communicated throughout the day on as needed basis. Often, these migrations take several days, so do these catch-up meetings every day. They are quick meetings, about 5 minutes, and the goal here is to make sure everyone is on the same page on the progress. Traditionally, there is an order on how things are moved, so I will share with you how I approach these components. I group them in 10 points, just so you can monitor them individually. Bear in mind that every business is different, so chances are every migration will be different. They might share a lot of common points, but let's take this as a guide for your plan, not as the plan itself, okay? Check source and target environment's health. Are the users configured? Is AD sync in place? Are the environments in a healthy state? Are the features needed in the target environment enabled, etc. Make sure these foundations are set in a good state. Check for pending relevant messages in the PWA queue. Make sure all enterprise components, I'm talking about resources, custom fields, calendars, and projects, are checked in and published. If not, force them to be. Migrate the solution packages. Migrate the site templates used by the project enterprise types and the lists that live in the PWA root. Migrate the PWA root configuration. These are enterprise data, security, workflows, PDPs, timesheets, views, quick launch, grouping formats, and Gantt charts. The list is quite large. I will put it here on the screen so you can know what to check. Migrate the schedule templates and the enterprise global configuration, also known as the MPP file. Do a sanity check. At this stage, you can actually have a checkup in the target environment to see if the enterprise projects are associated to the right template. If not, then do this association manually. Next, migrate the PWA site columns and content types. Start the PWA site waves. Well, let's talk a bit about what are the site waves. All the things we've migrated so far were the foundations. They are done once and that's it. Now the time to migrate the PWA sites has come. A common PWA instance has hundreds, potentially thousands of projects. What you want to do now is to try to migrate them in chunks that can be easily audited as they progress. My recommendation to you is to create batches of X number of projects and migrate them in one go, if possible simultaneously. Some migration tools allow for this to happen. Personally, what I do is to have listed on a spreadsheet the projects for each particular wave and their migration outcomes. Any errors caught in the wave are then recorded in that spreadsheet for later discussion. You do as many waves as are required until all projects are migrated. You should expect a few issues, not too many, but just a few enough that they don't raise alarm bells to stop the whole show. You can then tackle these exceptions at the end. Once all projects are migrated, now we can start the last part, the Sharepoint content migration. Sharepoint migration is commonly the one which tends to present less challenges because essentially it will be like a site backup and restore. What you need to pay attention here is on the security groups and users. So at the end of the Sharepoint sites migration, it is a good idea to check a few groups and compare them to their respective source environments. Important, attention to document versions. Some tools do not migrate Sharepoint documents and items versions, so make sure that to double check these items. And to conclude the execution phase, migrate the reports. These are SSRS, Excel reports, etc., web parts, and customizations. The process to validate a migration it should be done by those users you have identified at the beginning. Allow some time in the migration timeline for them to go through the new content in the target environment and provide the feedback. The objective of this validation process is to check your project goals and the assumptions that underpin what the business wanted to achieve. Customer validation is a critical step that needs to be undertaken before you release the new environment into the wild. So much so that the nature and importance of the homologation strongly suggests that this is an undertaking that should involve as many key stakeholders as possible. After so many dry runs and tests, a disaster should not be a big concern for us right now. However, any good migration plan must have a section addressing a possible rollback exercise. In our case, what we need to do is basically see at what point it failed, why it failed, and how much of what's being done has enough quality to be carried forward. Usually, this means just wiping out the migration sites in the target environment and redoing the site's migration waves. If the team for some reason is not confident enough on the operation, the best action course is to blow the whole target environment and make the source environment active again. The project lead will then decide the next steps for a new tentative migration. Now that all data has been migrated, the users are happy, and the success criteria have been met, we should decommission the node environment. First things first, the project lead sends out a communication about the progress of the migration, and also to confirm that the old site will be decommissioned. The communication should have instructions about how to access the new environment, and the data is still available in the old environment if someone feels the need to access it for some reason. Next, make the PWA site collection and the related Sharepoint site collections set to read only. The next step in the decommission is making sure the project server permissions to be set read only. This operation might take some time, so pay attention on the project server queue for any unusual errors or warnings. The new environment is up. It has been validated and the old environment is down. Congratulations, you've just completed your migration. When a business migrates data, this is also a good opportunity for the businesses. It helps to explain the why behind the project online to the people. It helps to identify who knows and who understands the business data. The business also will have a great clarity on who's the subject matter experts in your PMO team. So bring in the people who will be using the data into the project migration. After all, they will be the ones operating the system once it goes live. Poor data quality in a system. After migration, it is common to see companies surprised by how bad and the low quality of some of their data. To understand the quality of the existing data in a legacy system is a huge pitfall that companies often do not spend enough time on it. An as-it-is assessment is essential before embarking on a project migration task. Cross-object dependencies. Let's take for example this conversation. Hi John, look, we just discovered that this source of data that we were not even aware it needed to be moved, now it needs to be moved. Chances are you will hear something like this during the project. Don't be surprised. Cross-object dependencies are often discovered very late in the migration process. These dependencies are a major risk that can throw off your migration timeline, so pay attention to them. And finally, budget overruns due to inadequate scoping. This happens when the customer has the perception that the contractor or the migration party will take care of all the integration details during the migration. Huge pitfall. Truth is, most of us performing migration won't handle data beyond saying, well, I will connect the pipes and move the data across, like for like. But the business might not have this perception. Next thing is, a migration is done successfully, and then the people start to complain that data is not tying together and they are not able to do any testing. This pitfall will lead to cost overruns and wreck timelines. So, be clear on the scope of the migration from the get-go. To recap, let's see what we discussed today. We discussed the reasoning behind the project environment migrations, the steps necessary for making them happen, and a few extra points that you should pay attention to. Now, let me just finish this coffee. We have a mountain to ride down. See you later.